We're going to talk about budget reconciliation. We're also going to talk with newly elected San Antonio City Councilor Teri Castillo. Our group in Texas helped elect her, and we're also going to get an update from Joe Gouzd, who works for the United Steelworkers Local 9567, I think, in West Virginia. And there's a very interesting Manchin connection to this. So if you're watching us live, let us know where you're watching from in the chat. I'll be giving you guys some shout outs. Again, this call is going to be super exciting. I see there's some folks that are joining. Again, we'll have Pramila Jayapal. We're going to be talking a little bit with her about healthcare and about fossil fuel subsidies, a little bit about budget reconciliation. We'll talk with Teri, and we'll talk with Joseph Gouzd. So I see we have Andrew from Congressional District 8 in Northern Virginia. I see Bruce J. in Coral Springs, Florida. Nice to see you. I see Laurie in Southern Florida, South Florida. Elizabeth from Chicago. It's great to see you guys. I see Pam in Iowa. Alan in South Carolina. Good to see you. I see somebody in Chaffee County, Colorado. Joanne, nice to see you. John from Austin, Texas. We're going to be talking about Texas in a little bit. Diana from Houston. Again, we'll be talking Texas. I see Molly from Columbia, South Carolina. Good to see you, Molly. Leah from Encino, California, all the way on the West Coast. Good to see you. We got a lot of Colorado people here, including Gwen. Nice to see you, Gwen. We've got Kathy in Seattle. The West Coast is checking in tonight. I see Eva in Milwaukee. Good to see you. David in Howard County, Maryland, or Howard County. Good to see you. Another Eva, this time from Cleveland area in Ohio. We're going to talk a little bit about the canvas that we had this weekend, so you'll hear a little bit about that. I see Linda as well from Hell's Kitchen, New York City. We're fighting hard for a lot of the New York City candidates, so looking forward to working with you on that. I see Helen in Oakland, Matthew in Arizona. Nice. I hope it's Tucson, but you'll let me know a little bit later where you're calling from. Jennifer in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Larry in Vermont. Again, we're going to be talking with Pramila Jayapal a little bit about healthcare and what the possibilities are, what we need to do to save the planet and end climate change. We're going to hear from Teri Castillo, a newly elected member of the San Antonio, Texas City Council. And we're going to talk with Joe Gouzd about what's going on in West Virginia with the Mylan plant. It'll be exciting. Again, let us know where you're watching from in the chat. I see Isaac in LA. Good to see you. I see Ana Marta in New Jersey. I see Richard from Pennsylvania. Good to see you, Richard. Another Eva. Oh, Eva's talking about climate change. Yeah, it's going to be great. So stay tuned, Eva. So we'll get started here in just a couple moments. Again, my name is Paco. I'm here in my basement, otherwise known as ORHQ, with some of my folks online, and we'll be talking with Pramila Jayapal again about what we can do to improve healthcare coverage. We know we're not going to get to Medicare for all. We'll keep fighting for it, but there's some stuff we can do in between to get us a little bit closer to that. We're going to be talking with Teri Castillo, a newly elected member of the San Antonio, Texas City Council, and with Joe Gouzd about what's going on in West Virginia. I see Dave in Baltimore. Nice to see you. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Sudia in Berkeley. Nice to see you. And Craig as well. Can't forget about Craig. I see Betsy in Columbus, Ohio. Good to see everybody. I see Mark from Deep Red, East Texas. We're working on that, Mark, and we need your help to make those changes. So let me turn it over to our hosts for the night, Ana Marta Visky and Joseph Givargis. Ana Marta, take it away.
Thank you so much, Paco. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ana Marta Visky, and together with Joseph Givargis, we are going to host tonight's national field call. It's so great to be here with all of you. I feel like I was everywhere this week. I started the week off in Albany. I was there fighting for the New York Health Act, then went to New York City to campaign for our endorsed candidates, Maya Wiley. And then I went to Virginia for a direct action on the PRO Act. So it's great to be back in New Jersey, and it is great to be back to our Monday night call. Every Monday night we gather here with over 5,000 members who join our calls from coast to coast on Zoom, on Facebook, or on the phone, and we talk about how we are advancing the political revolution together.
And Anna Marta, tonight we're going to be talking about 3 specific ways we are advancing the political revolution. On Capitol Hill, we're working with our allies in the Congressional Progressive Caucus to push Joe Biden and Democrats to go bigger and bolder. We're going to hear from the co-chair or the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Representative Pramila Jayapal, tonight. We're not just fighting on Capitol Hill, we're also fighting to advance a political revolution on the streets. This week, we took to the streets in West Virginia to call on Joe Manchin to pay attention and listen to the needs of his constituents. So far, Joe Manchin has turned a deaf ear on the filibuster. He's turned a deaf ear on the For the People Act, and he's turned a deaf ear to workers who are asking him, save good union jobs from leaving West Virginia and going to India. Silence. We're not just organizing in Congress and on the streets, we're also organizing at the ballot box. We're going to report out on major wins in Texas, New Jersey, and other places that happened this week. And we're going to hear from one of the victors, the newest progressive on the San Antonio City Council, Teri Castillo. Brothers and sisters, if you've got questions for any of our speakers, please put them in the Zoom Q&A, or you can put your comments in the chat. If you are on the phones, and a majority of our listeners join on the phones, if you're on the phones, you can press *3. An operator will take your question. Our goal is to make this interactive, as interactive as this format lets us. So again, please throw up questions, and we will pitch them to our speakers. But first, before we get to our speakers, let's get Our Revolution news roundup. Anna Marta?
Thank you, Joseph. As you well know, Our Revolution was founded by Bernie Sanders in 2016, when it was clear that we needed a people-powered movement fighting for justice. And today, Our Revolution is America's leading grassroots progressive political action organization. And our mission is simple. We are organizing a national network of grassroots groups. We are holding politicians accountable. We are electing progressive champions at every level of government. We are fighting for progressive policies, and we are transforming the Democratic Party into a truly progressive party.
And Anna Marta, let's start tonight with accountability. It is one of my favorite words. Accountability. Look at, we as a progressive movement put Joe Biden in power. We elected a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. We elected them because they made a bunch of progressive promises. A lot of them took talking points from Bernie Sanders and our movement. And right now, progressives, it's crunch time. We have to hold Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress to deliver on their progressive promises. If they don't, Democrats could go down in defeat in the midterms, which are just around the corner. That's why Our Revolution is going all out right now to mobilize our national network of groups, our volunteers, to call on Democrats, to call on Biden to not backtrack. I want to be clear, this summer is the last best shot for us to win on our top progressive priorities on Capitol Hill. Progressives, let me say it one more time. This summer is the last best shot for us to win on our progressive priorities.
That's right, Joseph, and our priorities are clear. Our members want 5 main things. We want to protect voting rights. We want to expand Medicare coverage, and we want to lower prescription drug prices. We want to eventually win Medicare for all for everyone. We want to protect the climate, and we want to end fossil fuel subsidies. We want to make the wealthy pay their fair share, and we want to pass $15 minimum wage finally, and we want to win much needed labor reform.
That's what our revolution wants. Those are our top 5 priorities, and we're going to be talking about our path to winning on them. One thing that we all know stands in the way is the filibuster, the supermajority requirement that blocks all progress from happening in the Senate. Our revolution is committed to making sure senators like Joe Manchin stand with Democrats and help pass the most progressive agenda possible. And we are organizing in West Virginia to make sure that Joe Manchin listens to his constituents, a majority of whom support the For the People Act, and a majority of who want Joe Manchin to fight for good jobs. This week, we did a town hall in Joe Manchin's backyard, and we said, stand up and take action to save Mylan Pharmaceuticals, the biggest generic pharmaceutical company in the country. Stand up, save this plant from sending 1,500 good union jobs to India. Joe Manchin has yet to get back to us, and we're going to keep putting his feet to the fire. We're going to be hearing from the local union workers later in the call.
That's right, Joseph. And just this past week, we were also in Arizona, where our members from Our Revolution Arizona joined with the International Union of Painters and Allied Traders to host a workers' town hall to call on Senators Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly to support the PRO Act and eliminate the filibuster. So the PRO Act and every other important legislation that we care about that can help people can actually pass. Both senators were invited to attend, but guess what? They were both no-shows.
No-shows. That is unacceptable. Look, any Democrat who fails to stand with the labor movement is not worthy of putting a D behind their names. They should join the Republican Party. And you know what? We're holding Democrats accountable to standing with labor. This Saturday, hundreds of Our Revolution members converged on Amazon's headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, its second headquarters, to call attention to Amazon's track record of union busting and to call on Senator Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, to stand with workers and support the Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, to stand with workers and to stop standing with Bezos. And by the way, Warner gets a lot of campaign contributions from top Amazon executives.
All right, so how can you get involved? How can you help? We are launching a national phone bank to call senators in Virginia, Alaska, and Arizona to get them on board with labor law reform. They are going to be on Wednesdays at different times, so you can call at your convenience. So let's get calling, everyone. The link is in the chat for you to sign up.
Right on. So again, thank you to all our members who came out in the DMV area to flood the streets to call on Mark Warner to support the PRO Act. Wherever you are, you can join on this phone bank action. We already have tons of people signed up, but we have a lot of phone numbers in critical states, in West Virginia, in Arizona, and Alaska that we've got to target. So look, we're not just fighting. Let's take a moment to celebrate some of the big victories that our movement has won. One of the biggest victories is the fact that our movement helped put the nail in the coffin for the Keystone XL pipeline. Shout out to all our members and to especially our Revolution board member, Jane Klibb, who is also the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party and the leader of Bold Nebraska, for her leadership on this critical environmental fight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what's next to defend our climate from catastrophe.
Right, that's right, Joseph. And our revolution members aren't just pressuring and turning up the heat. They're also filling seats by winning local elections from coast to coast. We have helped elect a ton of progressive champions in 2021 races. For example, in Texas, our revolution members helped get out the vote to elect 7 of our endorsed candidates in this month's runoff. Tonight, we will hear from one of them. Teri Castillo is joining our call. She is newly elected San Antonio council member who was endorsed by our revolution and also by Bernie.
And you know, the secret sauce behind our victories, it's people power. And this weekend, our Revolution Ohio hit the doors in Akron to help elect Nina Turner to Congress. We canvassed almost 1,000 doors in one day. Amazing work, our Revolution Ohio. Keep up the good organizing.
And speaking of people power, in New Jersey, we helped re-elect Kate Trigiano, as a matter of fact, to the Red Bank City Council. Kate won her tight primary election without the support of the local party, but with the support of our members, and she's on to her second term. Jimmy Tarlow, an Our Revolution Maryland member, is now the newest member of the Mount Rainier Maryland City Council. And in Iowa, Our Revolution Iowa helped former Laundry Mayor John Green win his race for supervisor of Johnson County, which is home to Iowa City. And in Virginia delegate Elizabeth Guzman, who was also the co-chair of Virginia's Bernie 2020 campaign, won her primary last week in a very tough race as well.
Amazing work. And it is one, our electoral work is just one component of the organizing we're doing. We work to get progressives elected to office, but a lot of you may not know this, but what our revolution does also is to make sure progressives have a shot to get on the ballot, because a lot of times the Democratic Party is the biggest obstacle to allowing progressives to being heard and getting elected. New Jersey, case in point. Our Revolution New Jersey is fighting to call on the Democratic Party of New Jersey to stop using a rigged ballot system. It's called the county line. Basically, the Democratic Party puts its favorites up front, gives them an unfair advantage in the design of the ballot, and it puts progressives at risk. We're putting pressure on party leaders to redesign the ballot, and we're starting to go after state legislatures and saying to them, look, our ballots in New Jersey should look like ballots in other states.
That's right, Joseph. That's a perfect description of what's happening in New Jersey. And that's why it is so important to get involved, but not only in New Jersey, everywhere in the country. So if you're a party activist, if you're a party official at any level, whether it's county committee, precinct, district, county chair, town chair, municipal chair, we want to hear from you, because we want to build a national network of change makers who are working inside a party to make this party a better party, a more representative party. So there is going to be a survey link in the chat. Please fill it out. Again, if you are a party official at any level within the Democratic Party, and we will reach out to you to build that national network so we can make some changes together. But before we hear from our main guest of the night, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, my favorite Congresswoman, we want to ask you that you consider becoming a sustaining member of our revolution if you haven't already done so. And I have seen a couple of people announce themselves in the chat. Please sign up. Help our movement become a movement builder, invest in this movement so we can continue doing this work. We can continue building progressive power everywhere in the country. If you're on the phone, there is also an option to sign up there. You can just press *3 and an operator will take your details. But otherwise, the link to the membership is going to be in the chat for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna Marta. And thank you to all of our revolution movement builders, our sustaining members who make our progressive vision of America reality every single day. So now let's go to the meat of the program. As I mentioned earlier, right, this summer is going to be critical for Democrats to get progressive policies passed. It's going to be critical, period, for them to deliver on their progressive promises. And progressive Democrats in the House are going to be central to our strategy to win on healthcare and win on climate. That's what we're going to talk about. How do we actually get things done? Look, given the reality of the filibuster, and I've seen some questions in the chat, right? Given the reality of the filibuster, we're going to keep fighting to end or amend the filibuster. But given that reality, we have one good shot to pass our progressive priorities, and that is through budget reconciliation, right? We can bypass the filibuster and make progressive policies law with 50 votes plus one in the Senate using this process. So we've got Bernie at the helm of the Senate Budget Committee. He's our inside quarterback on the Senate side. And on the House side, we have a whole army of progressives who are critical. That army of progressives is called the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And they are the tip of our spear. They are tip of the progressive spear. And what they do and what we do in conjunction with them is going to be critical over the next period of time. Here tonight is the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal. Congresswoman, welcome to our call.
Thank you so much, Joseph and Anna Marta. That was such a lovely thing you said, Anna Marta. Thank you. And hello, our Revolution members. I'm so happy to be with you. And everything that you have heard makes me feel so hopeful about the progressive movement, but also about the responsibility we have, right, to deliver. It isn't just about saying these things. It really is about having to deliver. And that is what we're all about. So thrilled to be with you.
That's right. And Congresswoman, so at the top of the call, we laid out our priorities, and pretty consistently in the time that I've been at our Revolution, healthcare has been either number one or number two. Actually, this is the first time it's slipped to number two because of the onslaught attack on voting rights, that voting rights became number one. But healthcare, in our bones, our movement wants to win healthcare for all. We've got a shot to do that, to get closer, right? You're leading an effort to get President Biden and Democrats to lower the Medicare eligibility age, to expand Medicare benefits, to get Medicare to negotiate to lower prescription drug prices. Can you lay out the strategy and the opportunity for our movement in this moment?
Yes, absolutely. And let me say that the priorities you laid out are also the priorities of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So we are completely aligned there. And on healthcare, you may remember that last summer, Senator Sanders asked me to co-chair the Unity Task Force on healthcare, President Biden and Senator Sanders' Unity Task Force on healthcare. And we were able to negotiate into the campaign agreements of the president, now president, a number of things that we are now pushing forward and that kind of constitute the foundational elements of Medicare for All. So building on that commitment, I recently led more than 72% of House Democrats, from progressives to moderates to centrists to others running in the toughest races across the country, what we call frontliners. These are people sometimes that ran and won as Democrats in Trump districts, so districts that Trump won. We all got together. I coalesced everybody in calling on the president and the vice president to expand Medicare as part of the American Jobs and Families Plan. So specifically, what does that mean? We believe that we should lower the Medicare eligibility age and provide immediate coverage for tens of millions of older adults who are still uninsured or underinsured, particularly as we come out of this terrible health pandemic. up to 25% of adults aged 60 to 64 experience being uninsured prior to becoming eligible for Medicare for All. And ACA subsidies are expensive and they're insufficient, especially for older workers who just have difficulty affording health insurance. And especially in this moment when we've been facing this unprecedented public health and economic crisis, older workers are particularly vulnerable. And I'll just give you a couple of statistics. The US Census Bureau found that for the first time in nearly 50 years, job seekers that are 55 and older are facing higher rates of unemployment and staying unemployed much longer than younger workers. Second statistic, the higher costs of employing older workers are large enough to keep employers from hiring those older workers. And that has resulted in this third statistic, which is an uptick of older workers who are leaving the labor force and relying on savings or Social Security or retirement funds. So it is really essential that we lower the Medicare eligibility age and include a lot of these older workers. Second thing we talk about when we talk about Medicare expansion is improving Medicare benefits to include dental, vision, hearing, and an out-of-pocket cap. These are all things that are in my Medicare for All bill, because what we know is that negative health outcomes have been independently linked to poor oral health, vision loss, and hearing impairments. Older adults who don't receive a dental, hearing, and vision health care can experience all kinds of negative outcomes, from diabetes to risk of falls to depression and dementia. And frankly, it is just not fair that at the very moment that you need your hearing aids, your dental care, your vision care, that you don't get it, that you have to pay for a private Medicare Advantage plan that doesn't even cover most of that. And the third part of Medicare expansion is how we lower prescription drug pricing. Now, this was something that when I agreed to be co-chair, Senator Sanders said to me, Pramila, we got to get Medicare negotiating drug prices. And I said, yes, Senator, we got to do that, Bernie, and we've got to expand negotiation across all payers. And that was the agreement that we got in the Biden-Sanders Unity Task Force. We can pay for lowering the Medicare eligibility age and for these expanded vision, dental, and hearing benefits by lowering the cost of prescription drugs. And of course, what do we get when we do that? We get lower drug prices for Americans across this country. This is really critical. Medicare right now is the largest purchaser of drugs in the world and is not able to negotiate drug prices. And we see the devastating results of this. So if you look at Biogen's new drug that they claim delays Alzheimer's, and yet, by the way, it was not endorsed by the FDA's independent expert panel. Biogen reportedly is going to charge $56,000 per year for this drug, which will cost Medicare billions of dollars a year. And it's that type of price gouging by Biogen and other pharmaceutical companies that are just leaving too many people without being able to afford their life-saving prescriptions. So if we finally allow Medicare to negotiate, the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that this saves at least $456 billion, but we actually think that the total amount of savings that we can get from prescription drug pricing is around $600 billion, and that will pay for lowering the Medicare eligibility age, adding the benefits. And I just got to tell everybody, I feel like everyone here knows this, but this is not just the right thing to do. It is wildly popular across the country, not just in progressive districts, but in those frontline districts and Trump districts and very Republican heavy districts. 65% of Americans, according to a recent poll, including a majority of Trump voters and a majority in every state across the country, support expanding Medicare. So I'm very, very proud of the work that I've led in the Progressive Caucus in the House to get the Democratic caucus writ large on this idea of Medicare expansion. And we've been pushing very hard with the Speaker, with the White House. And of course, we've got Bernie championing this in the Senate. So this gives me a lot of hope that we get at least some of these foundational elements passed as part of the American Jobs and Families Plan.
And Congresswoman, what are some of the things that our members can do to help the CPC advance this agenda over the course of the next several weeks?
Really, the big thing is let's go big, let's go bold, and let's go fast on the American Jobs and Families Plan, right? We are writing the budget resolution, Bernie in the Senate, and then we progressives working with our chairs in the House to get we've called for a $6 to $10 trillion investment. And that may sound like a lot of money, and it is. It would be historic investment. That is the kind of level that will allow us to include all of these different pieces, not only Medicare, but all the other things that were on your priority list to make sure that we get a big investment into climate justice, to get at least 2 years of free either community college or four-year college. This is my College for All bill with Bernie. We need to do that, and we need to make the tax system fair. So call your representative, call the White House, go out and organize to get a big, bold package and get every Democrat on Medicare expansion. I told you we have something like 74% of the Democratic caucus, but that means there's 26% of the Democratic caucus that did not sign that letter. So you can certainly look and see who those folks are, but help them to understand why this is so important to you.
And Congresswoman, so you said earlier, this was part of the negotiation during the campaign with the Biden team. Where is the White House on this?
Well, that's the really exciting news. Initially, it was not in the American Families Plan. It wasn't in the American Jobs Plan. And then it wasn't in the Families Plan. And because of our push, and let me tell you, it was a heck of a push. We were able to get the White House on board with this idea. And the president, in his speech to the Congress and to the country, specifically talked about this. And I've been in close contact with the White House, and they are extremely supportive of getting this into the American Jobs and Families Plan. So I feel like we have made big movement. The movement has made big movement from the White House possible. And now we just need to get this over the finish line. And we're doing, working very hard to show that it's not just the right thing to do, but it's politically popular and necessary if we're going to win. This could be the thing where you go back and you say to whether it's a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, you're going to get hearing aids, you're going to get your dental, paid for, you're going to get your vision, and you get to get into Medicare at the age of a lower age, whether it's 55 or 60. That is going to be a huge delivery to voters across the country.
That's right. As our sister Nina Turner likes to say, our goal, right, is to make sure that we improve the material conditions of the people. This is a very specific way to do it.
That's right.
Right? If you're 60, you could get Medicare. If you can get dental, you can get vision, right? We can get more affordable drugs. This is doable this summer. So that's the first thing that we're going to throw down on. We've got to advance healthcare. And I've worked on this issue for almost 20 years, Congresswoman, just to let you know. And early on, when Barack Obama was a state senator in Illinois, I worked with him to elevate this issue. And I feel like, he didn't go all the way that we wanted him to go, but we have an opportunity to help bring this closer and bring the Democratic Party closer on its promise to universal health care than it ever has before. So this is the moment for that. I want to also touch on a second priority that is, again, critical to our members. This always ranks number 2 or 3, but it is climate. And what we know as a movement is that we've got to get radical. We got to get to the root causes. And one of the root causes of the climate catastrophe is the fact that we subsidize fossil fuels extraction. And that is something that we need to stop. We need to stop all subsidies and keep stuff in the ground. That is a foundational part of addressing the climate catastrophe that faces us. President Biden has signaled that he supports this. And in fact, the Senate Finance Committee just moved out and they said they're down with this. So what do we got to do on the House to make sure that this makes it in budget reconciliation and we can cut off our tax dollars from going to polluters?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is also a top 5 priority of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, is really bold action on climate, and that includes ending fossil fuel subsidies. Now, you know this, every year the United States government gives away $20 billion to the fossil fuel industry in the form of these tax breaks, incentives, other subsidies, all for an industry that made $28 billion in profits just in 2018 alone. So it's a huge waste of taxpayer money, and it is so harmful to our climate. So what we need to do is instead be invested in expanding clean energy production, as was noted in President Biden's Make in America tax plan. And there is broad support across the Democratic caucus to end fossil fuel subsidies and to use that money to pay for some of these other things. Not that we believe you have to pay for infrastructure, it actually pays for itself. And so I think that is why we are looking at these various subsidies and pushing in the House to make sure that any investments made in creating climate jobs, in establishing a clean energy standard, building climate infrastructure, are all rooted in the core principles of clean energy, no more fossil fuel subsidies, and of course tied to strong labor standards, which, by the way, I just led a letter with over 200 Democrats calling for strong labor standards in all forms of the federal infrastructure. But Joseph, I want to say one other thing, which is just in terms of taxes, because if we are going to invest $6 to $10 trillion, right, then we also need to, and that's what we're calling for in the Progressive Caucus, we need to make sure that there is enough money there to address the climate crisis. And one of the ways that it's important to think about that is all the ways in which our tax system has gotten less and less fair. So I see these things as really tied together, because if you look at what's happening with fossil fuel subsidies, it's a similar story to what we're seeing across the country, with the rich getting richer, the wealth of billionaires jumping by 40%, ultra millionaires and billionaires not paying their tax share, and working families across America paying a higher tax rate. Those tax dollars are going to those fossil fuel companies. I'm trying to draw the thread through all of this. And I think that is really, really important. So the tax pieces of this and reforming the tax system is also incredibly important. And I'll just mention that I've got a great bill called the Ultra Millionaire Tax Act with my friend Elizabeth Warren that also helps level the playing field and places a tax on those with net worths over 50 million, and 2-cent tax on over 50 million, a 3-cent tax on over $1 billion. And that would bring in $3 trillion. Just right there, $3 trillion that we could then invest into bold climate action. So we're really trying to take on all pieces of this, because it is, when people say we don't have money to work on climate change, we just have to call BS on that and say, sure we do. It's just about political will to address these things.
That's right. Our taxpayer dollars don't need to go to big pharma companies. Our taxpayer dollars don't need to go to polluting fossil fuel extractors. Our taxpayer dollars, and this goes to the point of the letter that the CP sent, our taxpayer dollars should go to companies that create good union jobs in the United States of America. That's what you're leading on. I think that's amazing. Look, people, this money is our money. It's taxpayer dollars. We should be able to determine how it is invested. And what we know is the capitalist class runs Capitol Hill, and we've got to fight back. And we've got a shot right now to make sure that our money works for our priorities. Pramila, tons and tons of questions. I'm going to pitch a couple to you. I know your time is short. And then what I would like to do is forward you some afterwards and then figure out how to respond to some of our members. But one question that came up is, why are we negotiating with Republicans right now when we've got the Senate, we got the presidency, House? Why aren't we going big and bold and fast?
Well, you've seen, I've been calling for big, bold, and fast. I'm saying, let's stop these negotiations. This is the same Republican Party that gave us not a single vote for the American Rescue Plan, that gave us not enough votes to even establish a commission to look into January 6th. This is the same Republican Party led by Mitch McConnell, who 6 weeks ago, Joseph, said that 100% of his focus was on blocking the Biden administration's agenda. So I don't know why people think that we have to negotiate with a party that doesn't want to negotiate with us and is just going to delay us and try to draw out all of the momentum. That said, I gave the president some room, have been giving him some room because we need to get all 50 Democrats on board. And that means that there are some Democrats who want to make sure that there's not enough Republicans to deliver. There's not 10 Republicans, I don't believe, that are going to come along with us. But even in any scenario, if there was some bipartisan deal that was agreed to that was smaller, we are not going to let go of our agenda. We're not going to vote yes on that bill unless we have a reconciliation package agreed to that has everything else in there. I've said that publicly. We're not going to have enough progressive votes in the House to pass a smaller bipartisan bill without making sure that we've got the reconciliation bill with all of these other priorities agreed to with 50 Democratic votes to pass through reconciliation.
So, Congresswoman, you shot the flare across the bow, right? We're not going to settle for a bipartisan, watered-down bill that does not take into account that which will improve the material conditions of people and the planet, right? We have our priorities and we have a very concrete path forward. And it's really incredibly exciting. So let me ask you this, on the fossil fuel piece, is there anything that our members can do right now? We are going to be doing a rally with Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth on the 28th outside the Capitol. Are there some things that our environmental caucus activists can do right now on the fossil fuels piece?
Well, I think it's the same thing, right? We have to make sure that particularly in places where people have not, including Democrats, have not been friendly to cutting these fossil fuel subsidies, we gotta focus attention there. But also, I think the movement for climate justice and for real action on climate change, I'm not just talking about nominal action, right? It's sort of like the way I was calling out on Twitter this last couple of weeks, all these companies that are putting up LGBTQ banners, but at the same time, they're funding Mitch McConnell and Republicans who are blocking the Equality Act. I feel the same way about climate. We have to be really clear that if we're going to address climate change, then it's going to require bold action. So the rallies, all of those contacting of members of Congress, and particularly focusing on the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. I think those are two important committees with members who really need to hear from you.
Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce. And you know what, Congressman, a lot of our organizers have developed relationships with members just around lobbying for Medicare for all. So I think we'll be there in the trenches on fossil fuel subsidies, no doubt. One last question. Manchin, filibuster, what's your argument to Democrats on
ending the filibuster?
Yeah.
Look, I'm laughing because this is like, we did a whole filibuster week of action with members of the Progressive Caucus and a big national town hall around this. There is no progress possible for our country with the filibuster in place. We have to eliminate the filibuster. It is a relic of the Jim Crow era. And anybody who thinks the filibuster is about some idealized notion of Mr. Smith going to Washington and standing up to the establishment, we have to help them understand that the filibuster was put into place by Southern segregationists who wanted to prevent any progress on moving forward on civil rights. And that is how it has been used over and over again to block progress. It's been used by Republicans as a way to allow for the tyranny of the minority in the Senate. And let's be clear that those 40 senators who can block anything from happening, or the 50 Republican senators, actually constitute a tiny fraction, represent a tiny fraction of the American public. So it really is voting rights or the filibuster, For the People Act or the filibuster, a $15 minimum wage or the filibuster. And I think we have to be clear that anyone that wants to keep the filibuster in place is actually hurting bipartisanship. Because if you really wanted to have bipartisanship, you would have a simple majority threshold of 50, and that would then allow for 3 or 4 or maybe even 7 Republicans to come along because they know the bill is going to be passed and they want to be on the right side of history. But when you have a 60 vote threshold, that becomes the tyranny of the minority. And I think the reality here is that when you look at, let's just say, major civil rights legislation between 1860 and 1890, 10 civil rights bills were passed, including several constitutional amendments, and 9 of those were passed with one party's votes. That is what happens. And we should be clear that on voting rights, which was number 1 on your list, the list that I saw, on voting rights, every single one of these bills across the country have been passed by Republicans. So any Democrat who says they think voting rights should only be done in a bipartisan way hasn't looked at A, history, and B, the present, because that's not how you get real progress on voting rights. So, and the filibuster.
That's right. We need to end the filibuster. And Pramila, our Revolution members, we're organizing in Arizona, we're organizing in West Virginia, but we're also looking through the budget reconciliation process and to working with the CPC to making sure that we make concrete progress if we can't get the filibuster out of the way. Yeah. So, Representative, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on this Monday night.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph, and our Revolution. I'm so grateful for all the work you do, and we're going to win this with your help. We're going to win this, but it is crunch time, and we need everybody to be engaged in every way that you possibly can. So thank you so much, and have a great evening, everyone.
Again, Pramila Jayapal talking about our inside strategy to advance our progressive policies. I want to underscore one thing. We can do this organizing, and it's not just organizing, holding events for, rah-rah, doing a protest. We're actually trying to figure out the strategy to advance concrete policies that we want. And we have a path to do it. But in order for us to keep organizing and to keep ramping up the pressure, we need more members to support our work. Every meeting, yes, we do, an altar call. We've passed the donation plate. And we say that because we're a church. Look we are small dollar funded, and we're not bankrolled by the billionaires. We're not bankrolled by corporations. We're bankrolled by regular people. And becoming a member right now means that you can help us win on expanding and improving Medicare this summer, and it means that you can help us end fossil fuel subsidy. $5 a month, become a member. If you're already a member, thank you. Sign up your family, friends, your neighbors. Let's organize to get this over the finish line. Anna Marta, over to you, sister.
Thank you, Joseph. That was inspiring as always. Now I want to actually reintroduce to our call Jenny Craig, our new West Virginia organizer, who is going to have a discussion with our next guest about what's happening in West Virginia and especially what's happening with Milan, that plant that is about to close.
Thank you, Anna Marta. I'm Jenny Craig, and I'm an organizer in West Virginia. I'm a lifelong West Virginian, and when I heard about the Milan pharmaceutical plant closing, it just absolutely devastated me. Morgantown, West Virginia is about an hour and a half away from my hometown in the North Panhandle, And I know many people in the Morgantown community, and I know what it's going to do and devastate the entire community. So if nothing happens, if our elected officials don't stand up and step up against corporate greed, around 1,500 workers are set to lose their job on July 31st at the time of the plant closure. Many of them are organized with United Steelworkers. These are hardworking West Virginians. These are our neighbors, our brothers and our sisters, who many of them having worked at the plant for decades and want nothing more than to work hard and to stay and to live and to work in West Virginia. And so we've been holding actions alongside of our brothers and sisters with United Steelworkers. On Tuesday, we got us from Morgantown, West Virginia, and we went to the state capitol in Charleston, and we implored our elected officials there to stand up and to do what they can to hold Big Pharma accountable to their corporate greed and to do what they can to save these critical jobs. The governor came out and he spoke to us, but he can only do so much. So we held a town hall on Thursday, co-hosted it with United Steelworkers, Local 957. And in particular, we are calling on Joe Manchin in his hometown, in his backyard, to step up and to do what he can to save these jobs. He's been virtually silent. And so it seems as if he is more focused on stopping progress in the legislature than standing with its constituents and holding this company accountable to the massive job loss and the devastation that it could happen. And so I've been so grateful to meet with and talk to Local 957 United Steelworker President Joe Gouzd, who in the short time meeting him, I can tell what a tireless fighter he is for his members. And but we need help. We need Joe Manchin to listen, and we need help to hold Beatrice accountable to the corporate greed. And so I'm just pleased to introduce Joe Gouzd, who is Local 957 President.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for having me this evening. It's a pleasure. I'm grateful. Our membership, our district, our local, we're grateful for our revolution and the display of strength and courage and demonstrations that you all have let us in. It's an honor to be a part of this demonstration to try to put a halt to Big Pharma and what is taking place by offshoring our essential domestic jobs and domestic manufacturing for such a critical component of our nation and our national defense. At this time, we'd like to say that we're making progress with the help of you folks, Mike Olez and yourself, and the folks that rallied around us at the Capitol on Tuesday. We felt that we made an impression, but our work is far from over. And at this point, we're looking forward to the next step and the next fight. It is true, as you say, we need Senator Manchin's support more than ever. And it is unbeknownst to us as to why he isn't stepping up for his constituents and taking care of the essential things that need to be taken care of for the dollars and the subsidies that could be available, tax abatements and such. We're just bewildered as to why Senator Manchin has been pretty much a ghost on this project since our notification was given of our plant shutting down July 31st, 2021.
So 1,500, and Joe, this is Joe with our revolution. So let's just underscore for our audience what's at stake. 1,500 good union jobs may be on the way to India.
That's accurate.
Joe
Yes.
Biden ran and said he would keep jobs in America. Donald Trump said they would keep jobs in America. I mean, this seems to me a perfect bipartisan issue for Mr. Bipartisanship himself, Joe Manchin, to take up. right? He could get with Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican, and say, you know what, we're not going to let this pharma company go abroad, especially after we had a pandemic. Seems like a no-brainer.
It is bewildering to me. I've been involved in Mylan Pharmaceuticals for 22 years, and now obviously we are Viatris. Viatris became known as a merger between Pfizer's Upjohn generic unit and Mylan Pharmaceuticals. And it is just bewildering to us that as the merger took place in November of 2020, all of a sudden, December the 11th of 2020, we're served notice 2 weeks before Christmas when we were given our paycheck that the plant is shutting down permanently July 31st of 2021. And when we asked corporate what the situation was and if there were any situations that could lead us back to the table to open discussion, we were told that giving notice to its members 2 weeks before Christmas was just as good a time as any to serve notice of a plant shutdown. And it took us back. As we know, that Heather Bresch is the daughter of Senator Joe Manchin. She used to be our CEO. She stepped away, perplexing enough, she stepped away in October, November of 2020. And then in December, we were served notification of our plant closure this July.
So,
and
Senator
Manchin is nowhere to be found.
Well, and I think you hit the, when you said you were bewildered, I think what you said there was quite interesting. Whose daughter was the CEO of Mylan Pharmaceutical? Joe Manchin's daughter. How much was her corporate compensation package? $114 million. And then the plant is about to get shuttered, and Joe Manchin has nothing to say. And we're talking about keeping good pharmaceutical jobs, pharma in the United States. Something doesn't seem right here, brother.
We're just, as I said, we're taken back, and we've been trying to reach out. We want to talk on a personal basis. I'll talk to the Washington Post. I'll talk to the likes of you all. I'll talk to the New York Times. I want to shout from the mountaintop. Accountability is a strong thing. And the bottom line is, if you're going to stand up and ask your constituents for a nod of approval and a check mark at the ballot box, then be willing to stand with them and fight and save the jobs in West Virginia, especially for why can we not manufacture for the Veterans Administration? Why can we not manufacture for the military? Why can we not manufacture for the National Defense Act? Several years ago, when we had a problem with the poison that was going around, the name of it is slipping my mind at this point. Nevertheless, we had a contract with the United States government for ciprofloxacin, and we made boatloads of ciprofloxacin, and we were very successful taking care of the needs of the government. And at that time, we performed flawlessly. We also shifted gears not long ago with the onset of COVID, and we were asked to manufacture hydroxychloroquine. They thought that it could have been an antidote for some of the complications of the COVID-19 virus. We turned on a dime and gave them 100 million doses within 30 calendar days that were flawless. And the only reason why we didn't manufacture anymore is because the active pharmaceutical ingredient known as API was coming from China. Go figure.
So Joe, thank you for that update. Jenny, thank you for your leadership on the ground. We're going to continue to keep fighting to get Joe Manchin's attention. This worker right here spoke at our town hall, the worker on the screen, and she said, where the hell is Joe Manchin? Get your ass back to West Virginia and represent us. And we're going to be working with you, Joe, and the steelworkers to keep the pressure on Manchin. So thank you for joining us. And I want to turn it over to Anna to introduce our last guest of the evening.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jenny. From West Virginia, we are going to Texas, where our revolution is working hard to turn Texas blue. So far this year, we have won 16 races in the Lone Star State. We helped get 3 progressive champions elected to the San Antonio City Council in the June 5th runoff election. Right before Election Day, we had John McKee Rodriguez on our Monday night call. You might remember him. He is now the first openly gay Black man elected to the state of Texas. He made history this election cycle. Our next guest will be joining him as a fellow council member. Teri Castillo is here. She was endorsed by Bernie and our revolution in her first ever run for political office. She won by a landslide. So welcome to the call, Teri. You're a first-time campaigner and candidate, but you got some pretty high-profile endorsements, including ours. Let us know a little bit about what you have done and what you stand for.
Yeah, thank you, Our Revolution, for having me and hosting this. I'm Teri Castillo. I'm a lifelong and generational resident of the district I was elected to represent. We are the most economically poor zip code and district in San Antonio. And, we know that business as usual is what landed us here, right? We always have the conversation that poverty, gentrification are policy choices. And my experience living here and, my background and training as a historian, we're seeing a lot of the same bad policy proposed, but we slap the word equity in front of it and we expect a different result, right? But we know that that's not going to work. It hasn't worked. And what we need to do is change the whole system and the ways in which we govern. When it came down to our election, especially in the runoff, so again, I'm very grateful for the support of our revolution. The real estate industry poured thousands of dollars into our opponent. He raised, I believe, like $50,000, the majority of which was from the real estate industry. I'm a housing and healthcare organizer, so we know that the powers that be are scared of our policy and how we intend to use our public money for public good. And what that looks like is investing in our public housing, because the district I was elected to represent has 32% of our city's public housing, which is at risk of being demolished, to be replaced with mixed income housing, right? And again, right, we always hear the argument that we need to deconcentrate poverty. Rather than actually address poverty. So that's why I'm running, is because I believe that, again, systemic problems call for systemic solutions, and that we need to address poverty and not just deconcentrate it and moving folks around the city.
Thank you so much, Teri, for joining our call. I wish we would have more time. We need to move on, but you are right. Poverty is a policy choice, and we are so happy that you got elected and you are going to work on these issues with progressive solutions in mind, serving our community. So thank you again for being on the call. Everyone, please don't forget, sign up to become a member. Help us elect people like Teri who are going to fight for us. The link is going to be in the chat for you. You can also press *3 if you are still on the phones, and I'm sure many of you are still listening in. An operator will take your information. So go ahead, sign up, become a member. Joseph, back to you.
Right on. And we've got some fun, exciting events happening this week to educate ourselves, to agitate. Tomorrow, Our Revolution, Labor for Bernie, we're hosting an event on Amazon with Alec McGinnis. He is the author of Fulfillment, Winning and Losing in One Click America. We're going to be talking about Amazon a lot because Prime Day is coming up. We just marched on Amazon headquarters. We're going to be educating ourselves on their evil business model. Join us tomorrow night for a conversation with Alec McGinnis.
And on Wednesday, you can join us for a massive virtual town hall, a big coalition event and musical celebration with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and New York Congressman Mondaire Jones, who will discuss the latest on For the People Act. The link is going to be in the chat.
Yes, that is the Senate Majority Leader. Let's pressure him to make sure the For the People gets a vote soon, actually within the next 2 weeks. So also on Wednesday, in addition to that town hall, we're going to be phone banking for the PRO Act. This is all across the country, multiple shifts on Wednesday. Join our revolutionaries and let's call our senators in Alaska, Virginia, and Arizona and tell them, stand with workers. Come on, get the program.
All right, and Thursday, busy week, but Thursday, Our Revolution New Jersey and Public Citizen are hosting a call with allies and Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman to celebrate our Medicare for All victories, 10 Medicare for All local resolution passed, and Frank Pallone on the bill. So join us on this important call. Let's discuss how we can get the rest of the New Jersey delegation on the Medicare for All bill.
And that brings us to the end of our call. I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank all of our movement builder, our sustaining members. I want to thank all the people who volunteer to help our movement move forward. We are going to transform this country because when we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
Good night, America. Woo.
Good night.
Recording stop.